Today you will read a story about nature. First you will read to understand what happened, then you will reread with a partner to analyze the figurative language. When we talked about figurative language, we focused on 3 categories of figurative language: simile, figurative language comparing two things using like or as; metaphors, comparing two things without using like or as; and personification, giving something human-like qualities that is not human. We are going to go ahead now and start reading Wildlife Worries. When we begin reading, we're going to start by reading our questions to make sure that we are thinking of the questions while we read. Question number 1. Read the sentence from the story. Next, we hiked a trail that snaked upriver through a gold mine of maple, birch, pine, and spruce. What does the comparison of maple, birch, pine, and spruce to the gold mine suggest? Question number 2. Read the sentence from the text, then answer the question that follows. As we walked on, though, I felt myself sinking back into a black bog of dread. What feeling is the author trying to create by using the metaphor black bog of dread? Select 2 options. Go ahead now and read question 3 with your shoulder partner. You are going to read at a level 1. Go. Okay, now we all have read questions 1, 2, and 3. We're going to begin reading our story. When we read our story, we're looking at the title first, Wildlife Worries. When we look at that, we're going to make inferences on what the story will be about. So when I see Wildlife Worries with an illustration of this animal, I think that the story is going to be about nature and the outdoors. While we read, I want you to listen for figurative language, like similes, metaphors, or personification, and if you see any, go ahead and write the paragraph number on your paper. Wildlife Worries. Paragraph 1. When my Aunt Cheryl and Uncle Don invited Mom and me to go hiking with them along the north shore of Lake Superior, we couldn't wait to go. It wasn't until we got there that I found out the woods are home to some serious wildlife: wolves, bobcats, coyotes, and bears. Although I was excited, I was also terrified of dangerous animals. Paragraph 2. An amazing waterfall near the park entrance swept away my fears at first. Next, we hiked a trail that snaked upriver through a gold mine of maple, birch, pine, and spruce. As we walked on, though, I felt myself sinking back into a black bog of dread. And just then, in the shallow, glassy bend of the river up ahead, I saw an animal I wanted to see. "Look," I said. "A moose! I'm going to feed it!" Paragraph 3. Aunt Cheryl grabbed my shoulder with an iron hand. "Nicky, stop now," she said quietly. We all climbed to some rocks high above the river, with an eagle's nest view of the moose. Aunt Cheryl explained to me that a bull moose topped the list of one of the most dangerous wild animals in North America, and it was more likely for a human to be hurt by a moose in these parts than a wolf or a bear. Paragraph 4. It felt strange, after all my misplaced fears, to discover that this beautiful animal that looked as tame as a cow back home had to be treated with caution. I decided that before our next trip, I was going to do a little homework about animals here and trade my wildlife worries for, what should I call it? Wildlife wonder. Close reader habits. How does the author describe the characters? Reread the story. Underline any figurative language that describes the characters, including the moose. I'd like you to take about 2 minutes with your group and identify at least 3 types of figurative language used in this passage. Go. Okay, so we're going to start with paragraph 2. Paragraph 2 said, I felt myself sinking back into a black bog of dread. That is our first sign of figurative language. I'm going to read the words before it and the words after it to try to get an idea of what it means. The sentence before it says, as we walked on, though, I felt myself sinking into a black bog of dread. And then the next sentence after it says, and just then, in a shallow glassy bend of the river up ahead, I saw an animal I wanted to see. So they were walking on, and then he felt a certain way, and then he got excited to see another animal. So I'm thinking that sinking back into a black bog of dread means going back to how he was feeling in the beginning. And we know in the beginning he was feeling worried or he was feeling unsatisfied. So black bog of dread must mean it's a negative feeling or a feeling that he doesn't want to have. Paragraph 3 says, Aunt Cheryl grabbed my shoulder with an iron hand. Now we know that Aunt Cheryl probably does not have an iron hand. So that is figurative language because people's hands are not usually made out of iron. So I'm going to look at the words before it and the words after it and see if I can find out, using my context clue, what this word means. A moose! I'm going to feed it! Aunt Cheryl grabbed my shoulder with an iron hand. Nicky, stop now, she said quietly, as we climbed some rocks high above. So when I look at that, she's grabbing the shoulder strongly. She says, stop now. So using my context clues and my schema of my prior knowledge, I know that when someone is usually in danger, they grab you sternly or very quickly, aggressively, because they don't want you to get hurt. So Aunt Cheryl having an iron hand probably means she grabbed him very tightly. The last one is our question number 3 phrase, and it said, he looked as tame as a cow back home. So that has to be a simile because it uses the word like or as, and it is comparing the moose to a cow. So that, of course, is figurative language because a moose is not the same as a cow. Going on to question number 1. Next, we hiked the trail and snaked upriver through a gold mine of maple, birch, pine, and spruce. So this phrase is saying that a gold mine is the maple, birch, pine, and spruce. Using my schema and my prior knowledge, I know that gold mines are pretty cool, and people often like gold mines, and gold mines are rich with material and even make people rich in the old days and now. So, if he referred to the gold mine being those 4 types of trees that were on the trail, what does it suggest that those trees are like? Go ahead with your group now and circle the correct answer, A, B, C, or D. Okay. Using our context clues, it's comparing those things in the forest to the gold mine. And we know that this is all about figurative language. So when it says B, the park is near a gold mine, that is incorrect because that would not be figurative language. And then C, the trees make a trail that seems dark, like the beginning of a mine. I see the word like there, and it makes me think of comparison. And I think when it compares the dark trails to the beginning of the mine, that's not a positive thing, and that's not something that makes people happy. So it's not going to be C, because we decided that a gold mine was a exciting thing, and the beginning of a mine is not very exciting and happy. D, the park had several kinds of trees with yellow leaves. Yellow does remind me of gold, but that is not the comparison we are looking for. The correct answer is A. The park has valuable natural resources, just like a mine has valuable natural resources, so that comparison would be correct. Number 2. As we walked on, though, I felt myself sinking back into a black bog of dread. I'd like you to please circle 2 answers. Remember, 2 answers that tells you what the black bog of dread means. Go. One of our clue words here is this word sinking back. And when I think of back in the story to what they were thinking of before, they were thinking of fear before. And so if they went back into that feeling, they would go back to feeling fearful. Another thing of a feeling that this reminds me of, I look at the other options. Adventure, no. Happiness, no. Being stuck, maybe. Regret, no. Or awe, and no. Because dread in black bog seems like a very negative thing. So when I think of this, being stuck would be the best option because that is the meaning of the feeling they are trying to portray by black bog. We're now going to scroll down and quickly go through question 3. Use the chart below to organize your ideas. And our ideas said, in paragraph 4, the narrator uses the phrase, tame as a cow back home. What does this tell you about both the narrator and the moose? Use figurative language on chart on page 273 to capture your thoughts. So, I'm going to go ahead and type now while you guys fill in your chart with me. Okay. As tame as a cow back home had to be. So type of figurative language. This type of figurative language is a simile. It is comparing the cow to the moose. And lastly, what does it mean? The author suggests that the narrator is from a place with cows, such as a farm or maybe a small town here, like at Coker-Wimberley. This suggests that she is not used to the familiar wild animals, and she might be more comfortable with the nature than city dwellers. The simile also expresses how calm and gentle the moose looks, even though Aunt Shirley points out that it's very dangerous. For your homework, make sure that your chart is completely filled out on number 3. And your homework tonight is number 4, short response. Make sure to use